Well, 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 here we are, dinging the bell for the beginning of the very first Chi Time TV live today on February the 9th, 2021. We have Katie Brockhurst in the house. Social media angel. She's written 2 books on social media and the new age. She is a digital well-being specialist and really likes to sort of bring lots of information through to help support our use of social media. So I've known Katie for a few years now. She's a consummate researcher. She's always searching for the truth. She wants to get behind what's really going on. She's a fascinating conversationalist. Totally thrilled to have her here on Chi Time. So welcome in once again, dear Katie.
Thank you.
So we are both here. We both live on the Avalon land. I'm about half an hour away from you. And it's been snowy here. It's been frosty. We've been stuck in, but it's been very beautiful. There's been a pristine quality to the snow that's been falling.
Yeah.
And I find this a real tonic to my senses with all the overwhelm that we get online coming in from all sorts of angles. And then, being able to presence myself by looking out the window. I look out the window usually and see bricks because of my next door neighbor, but then it's been this whiteness, this clarity. Do you think this is something that we're really looking for now, is space to be in sort of stillness, almost like clarity vision when nothing's perplexing us or nothing's pulling on us?
Absolutely. One of the things that we were seeing before we even went into the year that was 2020 and the year that is 2021 was the high information load in our brains from being online a lot, being on social media a lot, and not understanding really what that's doing to our brains. And we actually get what is known as information overload. And what that's doing is it affects our creativity, it affects our ability to think deeply, to read deeply. So the fact that we were already in an epidemic of screen time before we went into the pandemic of the world, which has increased then, I mean, some of the stats are saying that our screen time's gone up by like 80%, which was already at levels that were like crazy high anyway. What that means is I think our bodies are craving the nothing. One of the things that really keyed me into the studies around digital well-being, there's an amazing psychologist, a digital psychologist known Doreen Dodgen McGee, had written this book called what is her book called? I've just forgotten it. How good Devised. It's amazing.
That is exactly a great name, Doreen Dodgen McGee.
I know. Oh, she's so wonderful. Oh, she's just incredible. But one of the chapters was all about the importance of being bored, the importance of silence for our brains, and actually carving out time in your day to do nothing. And a lot of people they get caught up with feeling like they've got to meditate or that's the doing. Then it's like, no, actually just sit, look out a window, watch the birds, sit, be, take a cup of tea, allow yourself to have that time. And actually then the nourishment that's given, because we stopped being bored because we had these devices. We're waiting for a bus, we get our phone out, we're waiting for a friend to turn up when we were meeting them for cups of tea. You get your phone out, you're sat by yourself at a table, you get your phone out, you sat by yourself at any point. And we've got the greatest entertainment device we could ever hope for that's in our pocket. So whether it's watching a YouTube video, catching up with what people are up to on Facebook or news, it's just all there.
It is, like you say, this need to be, or bored is an interesting word, because when you say the word bored, it feels like it's something bad.
No.
It's actually this sort of this in-between time, this sort of like liminal space where you can just be. And as you know, both of us practice Qigong, we are aware of that presence of being, that essence of being that needs space to breathe and be. That's our creativity, that's our vitality. And if we're constantly overstimulating ourselves, where do we find the time to nurture this quintessential aspect of self?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, not only for our psyche, but also for our well-being and our physical well-being, our physiological well-being. It's on every level.
Very, very true. So, Katie, you've just come out of a digital well-being diploma course, haven't you? This is something that you were doing back in the end of last year. And
Yes,
is this something that they're constantly having to update with the new statistics coming out? I mean, yeah.
I mean, I've stayed on as part of so I finished my diploma and then I decided to stay on with the organization to stay part of a mentoring program, because part of that was we get all the latest up-to-date research, we get to stay on top of the space as it's emerging. And obviously when I signed up to do that diploma, it was before we'd gone into the March of last year when things got really serious. And you know, we were studying together throughout it, and I think what we all realized was just how needed we were going to become the middle end duration, you know, and I'm seeing it so much, you know, now, just that sense that people are exhausted. And of course, we're exhausted because we've been through a collective trauma with everything going on. But I equally think we're exhausted because we're having to do all of our, I mean, you know, parts of the lockdowns, I lived by myself. It was like all my socializing, all my work, all my everything is being done through a computer. And then I'm not having any time in embodied spaces with other humans that I'm then getting to co-regulate from a physiological perspective as well. And just the impact that was having on my body and my being.
Yeah.
And, you know, not only then the stress and everything else of the whole situation too on top of that, but, you know, devices I knew before all of this do actually deplete our energy.
I was going to ask you that. So is there research out around when you have a lot of screen time, how is this depletion? Is it because we're so out there and in there that we're not embodied in being and sitting back with it? Or is it the lights? Or is it a combination of frequency?
All of it, Clara. So you've got, well, the fact that even now as we're doing this, you don't normally have a conversation and see yourself looking back at you.
That's true.
What's one level of zooming and things that we don't realize we're taking into account, that we've got this constant attention on ourselves that we wouldn't have in a normal social situation. And you can now, they have brought in a thing where you can turn off self-view, which is quite nice. In fact, I might do it. I don't want to do it and then it disappear
while we're recording. No, we can practice that.
You can do that. You can take, if you tap on the 3 dots on Zoom, you can do hide self-view.
Oh no, I've got, all I can do is stop the live stream. I better not stop the live stream right now because we are live on Chi Time TV with Katie Brockhurst. Yay! But that, one of the things is that because so much of our socializing and also our business is online now, can we choose whether to have our screens on sometimes and whether to have just audio? You know, because this is like, how do we manage this, Katie? Because we're in it up to our necks and beyond. So how do we manage with what we've got?
Boundaries is a beautiful part of it. So as you know, this afternoon I had a call with someone I'm collaborating with, and I immediately instinctively said, I'll send you the Zoom link. And she replied saying, actually, I've already got loads of Zooms in this week. Could we do it audio only? And my entire body just went, yes, that would be lovely. Thank you. I would love just to do this call on audio. Yeah. So we just did like an hour and a half session, but through audio instead.
So this is a choice point for people, isn't it? You don't always have to be on video. Yes, it was one of the thrills, you know, now as a kid, it used to be one day in the future we'll be able to video call each other. And there's a certain amount of like excitement about that. And now it's like it can become a pressure to like, oh no, I chat to you, but I really don't want to go on screen right now. And it's like, really? It's like, no, really, I don't. Like you say, boundaries. I just don't.
Because you're having, you know, you've got, I think that's why Clubhouse, which is the new social media app everyone's talking about and loving, is so popular, is because it's audio only and it's live. So everyone's saying, you know, I can be doing the dishes or making dinner and I could be adding my bit to a conversation, and I haven't got to be looking at the screen or looking at myself or doing any of those things. Because also the thing with screens, a lot of people are saying that their eyesight has got worse.
Oh, really?
This last year, and that they're like going outside and they haven't got as good vision at a distance.
Oh, because you're not looking at the horizon and coming back and all. Yeah, that's important, isn't it?
Looking at a screen.
So what about the children? I mean, we have got close friends of ours that have got children, and they're like, all their schooling is online. It's like,
well, I think we have to be really careful. There was a study that was done in Korea with young people who played a lot of video games.
mm-hmm.
As children, and none of their eyesight had developed in the same way. So they were having difficulties with long-sightedness. It just wasn't developing as they were developing as young people. We've also seen studies coming out that a lot of screen time under the age of 11 actually affects the development of white matter in the brain. There's, you know, we have got 10-year studies now that are out, the more longer term studies, which show, I mean, it shows developmental issues in adults. So you can only imagine the developmental issues that it may be having on young people who have not yet developed fully.
Oh, Katie, so this gets us into the realm of what can only be described as cognitive dissonance, because this information is out there for us to glean and to learn from, just as there's information about the current situation from all sides that is out there. There are things that are being said in plain view, and that it's like, did they really say that? And people aren't picking up on it. Yeah. So we've got this overstimulation, this overwhelm. We've got psychological mind games being played, quite honestly, with the mass population. So where can people go to be in their right minds?
Nature is the best place.
It is,
or into that space of silence and boredom, you know, creativity. It's about creating a practice, you know, I mean, and I need to listen to my own advice here, of every day having an hour or two where, you know, I have lots of notepads I use like colored paper and pens, and rather than doing all of the work through the computer, I will go into a space. I've got a space in my garden, a garden room that I've created where I don't have the Wi-Fi. Though, funnily enough, that's crept in because it's my space to go do yoga. And now I've got to do yoga over Zoom rather than yoga in person. So now I've had to put Wi-Fi up there because I don't have space in the house. So, but having a space where you don't have Wi-Fi would be ideal. You know, the weather's obviously hard at the moment, so it's harder to go outside and take notebooks and be creative. But the minute you see a sunshine patch, like, drop the laptops. I mean, they're saying now as well, like, people, whether you're working for yourself or working jobs, doing more hours during lockdown because of the connectedness of the devices. You don't have, you know, your time in the day where you would have been commuting, and maybe you wouldn't have been, though, you know, I did notice whenever I visited London after I'd left, that every time I visited, everyone on the tube was face down in the phone, ear pods in, and like super connected. And I'm quite into the idea of where are we going as a human race? Like, is transhumanism a thing, which is the intersect of biology and AI and technology, which is actually the fourth industrial revolution, which you can read about on our government's website. So it is, you know, we're not in the realms of conspiracy in any way, shape or form with this. And it's where things are going, automation. And I look around and I think, are we already there yet to some degree? We've all got a screen in front of our face for most of our waking hours. And if we've not got a screen in our face, we've got an ear pod in our ear. So we're permanently connected, and it's where mankind and technology merge is the point of singularity, which they say could be as soon as 2025. I mean, this is me going kind of out there, but I think it's something we also need to consider, like the real term impact. Are we the last humans? I mean, Neuralink exists, Elon Musk, he actually says it's like having a phone in your brain. It's a chip that's, you won't see it, your hair will grow over it. It exists now. They're running the tests. And he says, like, when Neuralink, you know, its initial use will be to help people with spinal cord injuries, and some really fascinating and exciting things, how it can really help people with neurological disorders. Yeah. But he's then saying the next phase will be, it'll be like having a phone in, you know, actually connected to your brain. So
where does choice come in then?
Well, I think choice is already coming in. And this is what I'm working with a lot of my clients. I mean, I traditionally have helped people build their social media platforms, and now I help them then manage their relationship to social media while they're running their social media platforms. And a lot of my work with them is like, okay, how do we, really good boundaries around the time that we spend online, because these networks, Facebook, Instagram, obviously owned by Facebook, WhatsApp owned by Facebook, Google, Twitter, they are, you know, harvesting us for our data, and they want us online as much as possible, as often as possible, for as long as possible, because then they can gather more data, and they can serve more ads. So it's a two-way money street. Serve more data, get more data, serve more ads, money.
Becoming the normal. Like you were talking about that, yeah, well, that's normal. Oh, back up a bit. Have you seen Social Dilemma? You know, it's like, whoa, the background story to how this has evolved was just, it's a mass experiment, because actually our lives are massively experimental. There's no handbook here on planet Earth. We're making it up as we go along. Yeah. But we do need to be aware of warning signs, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I think we need to be looking at these ethical questions, and also looking at what it's doing to our well-being. Like, I have to be careful. People who's like, you know, you can't just come off technology. And I'm not saying for an instant, I'm not one of these people who says we need to come off tech. It's not all or nothing. There is an in-between. And the big question, and quite a lot of philosophers have asked this big question, it's like, are we being used by it, or are we using it? You know, who's the master, who's the slave? And this is the thing about artificial intelligence as being part of the mix. And this is the warning sign that Elon Musk gives, is that we've always been the top dog on the planet because of how our brains work. So we're the only animal that has some sort of awareness of itself in the way that we do, and the way that we're able to think. And so that has led us to our supremacy, essentially, because we're the most intelligent. I will use that in a loose
inverted commas, or perverted commas.
But with the way that AI is going, and probably already is, it's more intelligent than us. And they're saying by 2030, it will be able to do everything that we can do, but better.
Okay, but what's the difference between intelligence and intuition and otherworldly awareness?
Definitely.
You know?
Yes, for sure. It doesn't have that. But if it is able to do all of the tasks and the things, we will start to see, you know, huge job losses. If we're looking at driverless cars, automated factories, all the stuff of the Great Reset and what's been being proposed by the World Economic Forum, Amazon say by 2030 they won't need any staff. It will, or it could, it could easily all be robotics.
So does this mean there's going to be more time for recreation, people to actually get into your passions, into hobbies, the old stuff? So there could be very good implications here, but it's how it is managed and mastered, and how we as the little people choose to use it, because that's what happens. That it's a response thing, isn't it? So being in this right at the beginning, we were talking about having that still space of pristine awareness. To actually come into, to choose from. But if you're constantly in it, and as you were saying, it is geared towards, the biochemistry, the responses within us to make us want to be there more, to keep us distracted, to keep us buying. Where's the humanity in the actual system? Does it always need to come from us? Is it down?
We feed the machine, and the machine learns from us. So it's called machine learning. So it is a very interesting cycle. And as they say in the social dilemma, if it's free, you are the product, and we have become the product, and we're the ones that are being spun into gold. But if you start to get your head around surveillance capitalism, and there's a fascinating, this book I would recommend to anyone who's interested in this at all. I mean, it's quite a tome, but she's in the social dilemma, and she talks a lot about how, we're feeding it with our information, and then they're turning it into like predictions. So someone who is like 2 weeks older than me, who has a very similar profile in terms of what they click on, what they watch, what they like, what they've bought before, because there's so many of us, they're able to put us into these data set groups. They can see what someone bought 2 weeks ahead of me, who's like me, and then advertise that thing to me, knowing that I'm likely to want that thing. And so they're making absolutely millions and billions out of this, knowing you better than you know yourself from the data that's in your phone. Yeah.
So it's taking choices away from us by preempting what it is we could want. So it's sort of like undermining our ability to choose. So
you heard about Spotify's new AI, and them wanting, they'll be able to tell what mood you're in by your voice and then recommend songs for you. Particularly the women I've spoken to have all felt like, we use music to shift our mood into something else, and it's not going to know that. And how do we opt out of that? Like, everyone's just like, no thanks.
Whoa, we've got a couple of comments coming in from people, Katie, on the YouTube. We've got Lisa over from Indiana, USA, just saying, thank you for having this conversation. This is an important one to keep going. So thank you for being here on the live, Lisa.
Yeah.
And Jackie D saying, scary about the Elon Musk thing with the hair growing back over, whatever next, So it is down to us to make our choices while we still can, oh my goodness. And as you said earlier, it's not about not wanting technology to be part of our lives. It's about choosing how and when we want to use it, because it is a phenomenal, absolutely incredible asset to us. It could really help with all the environmental problems, with the world hunger, there's so much that it could be really helpful for, if we could take the greed aspect out of wanting to sell people stuff that they don't really want,
I know. It's like virtual reality. I've been looking into that, and because Mark Zuckerberg is saying, he's even said it this month, that it's the next computing platform. And he's spent billions on Facebook Horizon, and that, as much as it appeals, scares the living daylights out of me because of their track record. But then I've also looked into studies of how virtual reality is being used to help train doctors, how it could improve, operations, how it can be used for good. And I also think how awesome it would be to sit on my sofa, stick a headset on, and be able to be somewhere else instantly and really feel like I'm in that space. I mean, you know, we think about the third eye. I did this amazing meditation called the Angelite Meditation, which is like a triangle, and it flickers a light. You close your eyes and it flickers a light over your third eye. And I was having like psychedelic journeys just through the light. So I think, you know, if you're putting on a visor and you're in these spaces, like you really are, you know, traveling to another dimension, essentially.
Yes, but that's a natural. That's quite an old way of doing that. I mean, maybe not with that, but you know, the I'm thinking there was in the past, so I can't remember who it was now, but that I think they were driving along the road, and there was the trees, and there was the sun behind the trees, and the flashing of the light on the trees. Obviously, this wasn't the driver; it was the passenger. Was getting an experience in their third eye. So there are it's that flickering of light, and there are sort of brain training apps that you can, or you know, strap-ons with lights on them. Absolutely, because it's something that stimulates this area in our brain naturally through having the light there, and then going off in your own experience. And
yeah, I think it helps trigger the DMT that's stored in the pineal gland, and then
which is natural within us.
Yes. Yes.
So there are good things to be had here, which is brilliant. So Jackie just saying, didn't catch the name. Horizon. What was the Horizon?
Horizon, Facebook Horizon.
Facebook Horizon. So just before we wrap up here, because I know Katie's got other things to do with her life, as I'm sure you all have. Thank you for being here with us on Chi Time. But so with all these, you know, we've heard about Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and all the ones that are harvesting our data, and we now got a whole rack of new platforms to use. I know you mentioned Clubhouse before now, so, and I think Telegram's the big one as well, isn't it? So there's all these where do we hang out? Because a lot of people are now coming off Facebook because of finding out. What do you recommend in your capacity as social media entrepreneur?
I actually recommend energetically scanning each of the platforms for yourself. So I created a do-it-yourself workshop with a space and energy healer, George Lizos, and he created a really beautiful meditation where you actually visit them as though they're lands, like they're places, like they're countries, and you go and you see what's there. And so I would, like, you know, invite all of you to energetically visit and travel to the platforms as energetic spaces and look to what you see and how it feels for you, because it will be different for each of us. I also am aware, as much as I love Telegram, it's still a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
They all are. We do get dopamine. It's anticipation of the reward, and all of them know that. I don't think you could design an app now without there being some kind of dopamine loop. But I noticed with Telegram, I was starting to get similar sensations in my body. So again, look to the body, look to what your body tells you, and then create boundaries around. I use app time limits. I make sure I'm only online at certain parts of the day. I try and switch off early in the evenings. Like they all say, like no screens an hour or two before bed. And that does help. Equally, no screens in the mornings, but getting out into nature every day, going without your phone. You know, it's like, so there's not just the apps that we choose, but also then the relationship that we choose to have with our device in itself, because no app is going to be, it's going to be clean.
Right, because if it's free, we are the okay. But what happens, you know, if one of the sort of overwhelming things that I get is that, you know, a message has come in on one of these messaging threads, and you have searched around. Was it there? Was it there? Was it there? It's all like, oh, it's almost like too much to sort of keep up with where that message was. And if I want to message somebody, am I going to just use ye olde texty, or, you know, or definitely not Twitter? But, you know, it just seems to be certain people you message on certain platforms.
No, it's funny that, isn't it? Because I'm trying to come off WhatsApp at the moment, and my block to actually deleting it is I still haven't let a handful of people that contact me through WhatsApp know I'm leaving WhatsApp, and I know they're not anywhere else. So it is a bit like, you can text me or phone me, or, you know, and it's actually like almost having to like reimagine what your friendships and relationships are like outside of these messenger platforms. I've had one friend that we realized we started just scheduling in our chat times because of all the online time. And I actually said, I was thinking about you on Saturday night, but I didn't know if I was okay to call or not on the spur of the moment.
Spontaneity, where to that? And because we're also super available, I think that's why this boundaries piece is absolutely imperative. That's where we can choose, and to have the out of office hours on your emails, and using techniques and strategies that you just have to uphold. They will be challenged. There will be like there'll be things coming in and you'll be like, oh, I'd really like to, but it's not. I've told myself I'm not going to do that. And I tell you what, one of mine is Sundays, Katie. I have what I call sacred screen off Sundays, where I do not have the Wi-Fi on. Okay, there's the phone which picks up data and I can, if I need to be contactable. But that I found it's been really great to do, but it's also been very challenging when people have been running great stuff on a Sunday that I've wanted to do. I did let it slip last Sunday because Ken Combe is doing his Taoist meditations, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be in on that. But you know, generally, when we're programming yourself,
to Sundays as well.
Sundays are sacred. You know, they're you time, and I think this is becoming more and more imperative that we put a flag in the ground for. Sundays are me time. They're not.
It's so interesting because I'm like, I find as well through this lockdown, like I'm on my own all the time. So why have I got to carve out time for myself? But it's like, because we're so accessible through digital means, I think everyone just thinks you're free. Like I've got friends who like to meet on a Saturday night, and I just don't like being on Zoom in the evenings at all. And they're like, let's all get together on Saturday night. And it's so hard to explain why I don't want to.
Exactly. So you're
just going to be at home by yourself. Why not? I'm just like, because I just don't want to be on Zoom. I'm on Zoom all week,
all the time. And it's wearing, like you say, to come down from all of this. So Katie, how can people find out more about you and what you get up to?
Yes, I have a club which meets twice a month, which is the Social Media for New Age Club, which you can find at www.socialmediafornewage.club. That's hosted on Mighty Networks, which is a really nice non-in-your-face, you pay for kind of platform. And so that's one place. And then yes, socialmediafornewage.com is my website, and people can contact me through that and find all of my other bits and bobs
that you get up to. Well, totally great having this conversation with you here today on Chi Time, Katie. Thank you for being here with us in the Chi Time hot seat. If you've got one piece of advice for people in this day and social media age, what would it be?
I would say have one phone that isn't connected to big tech, so that's just for phone and friends and doesn't have data trackable in any way, shape or form, if that's possible for you. And then get into nature without a phone as much as possible on a day-to-day basis, if at all possible, because it is the great reset. It literally, we talk about the great reset. Nature is the great reset.
Exactly. And it's all around, it's wherever we go out into it, it's there. That's always resetting. Nature does the thing all the time, and that's what she's been trying to do. And I mean, you know, hopefully this could be the silver lining of this whole situation that we're in, is that from the ground up, from nature up, we are going to be reset into our truth and into our bodies, and using the tech wisely, because it is a phenomenal bunch of technology that we can get into. So
it's amazing. Just 10 minutes outside with a horizon view will reset your executive attention and clear the information overload. Yeah,
great. So you just have to get out there 10 minutes and then you can come back in. I think that's great advice, and it's followable as well. It's possible to do that, whether you set timers on your phone. And my son does that, or whether you sort of get to the end of a task and go, right, before I dive into the next one, you have your cup of tea, you might just go outside for a bit, you know, so you start building these.
Looking out of a window can even help. Yeah,
sure. And breaths of deep lungfuls, so that you breathe out, so that you can breathe in really fully, and come back into your bodies time and again. And of course, do your Qigong practice, I would suggest. Of wouldn't I?
You would, yes.
And dance.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to be with you in person at some stage. I know we will, some stage in the future. But until we do, give you virtual hugs and thank you so much for being here on Chi Time. And thank you all for watching. We've got Tracy's here and Anne's here as well now. They're going to go back to the beginning too and watch it again like you can. So yeah, the great action of replay, which happening very shortly after I press stop the live stream. So sending lots of love.
Lots of love.
And keep your chi up, my friends. Always worth smiling. Always worth smiling.